So, so we were talking about events to host and to bring out to our members. And in my time as a music manager, I did untraditional music management where I did built my whole business on brand partnerships and investors. And a lot of people of our 1,200 membership have been asking me about it. And instead of getting individual questions, I said, let me get the people who are the most knowledgeable, best people I can think of in this area, and let's do an event where they can talk about it, because there is a lot of interest in brand partnerships, NFTs, capital investment, angel investment, and let's get these people together and let's have an event. So I was really lucky to be able to get some of these people who never come out and never speak, and I'm just so honored to have them all here in one room. So without further ado, I'll introduce everybody. We have Mervyn Lynn and Sean Springer at the end from Strategic Partnership Solutions.
SPS, it's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. We also have Neve Byrne from 11 Management. This is one of her colleagues, Astrid, also in the front row. We have Gordon Hagan, who is an agent. He is the Ari, if you like, the good Ari. He's an agent formerly of William Morris, Sony Music, and now he is so popular he set up his own company. And we also have Paul Bedford from Edition Capital. He is the one that, well, when you want to talk about show me the money, show him the business plan. That's the right business plan. He'll show you the money.
Well done.
So we brought them all together. The way that we're going to run this is we're going to be talking initially about campaigns, experiences, sharing information. At the end, Paul is going to do a dedicated slide presentation about business plans and how to get investment. And that's going to have its own bit at the end, and we'll also have questions for that. So just to get started, thank you all for being here, and thank you for sharing all of your knowledge. Who can I start with? I'm going to start with Neve because she is somebody that I have followed for so many years. She's a fellow music manager, founder of a management company, and I wanted to talk to her specifically about the campaigns that she has done over the last 21 years with the Gorillas. So her first campaign with them was with Apple iPod, and she has continued campaigns over the years. They are the coolest campaigns. Why I wanted her to come here and speak to you is because they've always maintained integrity. And I wanted her to talk about how to do brand partnerships and also maintain integrity and creativity and represent your artists in a positive way. And I also wanted to add that as of 2 weeks ago, Astrid and 11 Management were nominated for an Oscar. So as far as I know, she's one of the first ever Oscar-nominated brand partnerships with WeTransfer, and congratulations, guys. So one thing about all of your what do you think makes Gorillas so attractive to brands to work with?
Well, I think for one, brands don't drive culture. I think that they need to attach themselves to kind of bands and music. I think music has a kind of deep emotional connection to people, and that drives engagement. So obviously, if you have an artist who kind of does that, then obviously a brand would want to kind of align themselves. I think for Gorillas, I guess kind of they're very authentic, kind of true to kind of what they say. They've got things that they want to disrupt. They try to kind of innovate around what they do, drive creativity, be true to themselves. So all of those things are usually kind of things that brands like to align with. Does that make sense? That's, I guess, kind of the reason, I suppose.
So when you're looking, oops, as if my voice isn't loud enough. When you're looking for brands to work with, what are the key points you're looking for to who to partner with?
In all honesty, we never do it that way around. It's always like for us, and particularly with Gorillas, it's a very expensive proposition. We have animation. It takes a long time to produce. There's a lot of people involved. Really brands became a necessity to try and fund kind of creativity, and that's kind of essentially how we start, and actually that's how we kind of lead everything that we do. And I think that's probably why at the end of the day, when things kind of finally come to fruition and you kind of see what we do, it doesn't feel like a brand partnership. It just feels like a really good alignment of, you know, the thing that the artist wants to do in the purest, kind of truest way that they can, versus kind of being able to kind of work for a brand. So does that make sense? So we basically come up with ideas. That's what we do. We kind of think of kind of really big kind of strategic campaign ideas to kind of suit the artist's vision, and then we basically work out kind of who we think would be most aligned, and then we go and chase it. That's kind of how it would work. And then basically if a brand comes to us, we usually have a bucket load of ideas that we obviously want to do but can't do, and we try and find the idea that's kind of most suited to the brand and what they're trying to get out of it, because obviously the most important thing is not just taking advantage of a brand. You've got to basically make it work for the artist, and you want the brand to be happy at the end of the day and know that they've kind of hit all of their kind of various kind of milestones, because then obviously they're going to come back. And so some of the things that we've done have kind of resulted in us doing kind of multiple things with one brand, but probably people don't even realise, but I think that's a good thing. You don't really want it to be, you know, very obvious what we do.
And that's what I think is really cool about everything that you've achieved with the Gorillas. Like, as a fan looking at the partnerships you've had, it's always maintained integrity and authenticity, and it always seemed like it was a Gorillas project that the brand were jumping on, as opposed to vice versa. And when I think about like what you did with the Demon Days Festival, can you tell us how? I mean, that was with Red Bull and Hennessy.
We had, it was Red Bull, Hennessy, and Eon actually on the first one, and then obviously we did one in LA, which was kind of different. But yeah, again, I mean, obviously the concept of it's a kind of a different thing, but the concept of a artist curated festival, certainly from a Gorilla's point of view, was again kind of solving a problem. You know, we have sometimes kind of 60 to 100 people on the road with us. It's not a kind of easy thing to kind of pull off. So obviously kind of the normal kind of ways that you kind of generate money just doesn't work for us. So we have to kind of be a little bit more kind of ingenious about what we do. So we thought, well, if we can't kind of, you know, pay all of these artists to come and perform on stage on one night, let's have a festival. Let's give them all a slot, and let's kind of make it work, our festival, and then actually achieve what we wanted to do, which is ultimately to have this kind of circus type kind of show with kind of everybody in one place. So that's the reason why we did it in the first place, and also the ambition that we kind of wanted to potentially do that going forward, because Gorillas is always about, you know, giving other artists a platform as well, and will continue to be. So we ended up doing it again in LA, and we'll continue to do it again going forward. So that's how that happened. And sorry, from a brand point of view, it was realised because we had Red Bull, who ended up broadcasting the event, so that was a broadcast partner. And then we had Hennessy was an activation that was at the festival, and Eon was an installation at the festival.
That was the solar powered
Yeah,
studio.
happened to have a song that was called We've Got the Power, and so being a very kind of environmentally conscious band, we thought doing a solar collaboration with someone who actually was invested in solar power was a good idea. So we created an installation of Con Studios, which is the animated band's studio, and that people could visit in real life, and then we basically got artists to come along, and we chose kind of artists and selected producers, and they made music in a solar-powered studio, and then we released the music. And that was basically one of the activations that we did around Demon Days.
So what advice would you give a manager that doesn't have a band that has 20 years of first-class brand partnerships under their belt, and is perhaps just starting out? What advice would you give them about maintaining the integrity and the authenticity of the band when talking to people who are brokering the deals and the brands themselves?
Talk about gripes that I have.
Well, it's a great place to do it.
I think one of the things that I would say to warn people about is that and I'm sorry, Ben. I know Ben is here as well, and he was working with. Hello, Ben. I think it's sometimes it's always really good to kind of go direct, or to kind of have somebody who kind of really understands what your proposition is. I think sometimes what happens is you have brand teams who are very good, by the way, and I'm not kind of dissing anybody, but sometimes a brand team within a label would basically negotiate a concept with a brand, and come up with a creative idea, and then try and find the band to kind of fit in the kind of concept. And that never works for me, because it just feels that you're constantly kind of jarring. You really need to kind of have an authentic reason why you connect with the brand. And so I think that's a word of warning. It's just like, find that authentic kind of reason to connect and why you should do something in the first place. If it doesn't fit, don't do it. It's going to end up being like really difficult and feel really difficult to achieve, and it should just really feel effortless. So if it isn't going to be like that, I would say just don't do it.
Okay, and that's going to transition very nicely into you, Gordy.
Okay.
Gordy has really unique experience. He worked as a brand partnership manager at a label at Sony. He was also an agent with William Morris, and now he's doing it independently. So I think he can give us a really unique view of the three different avenues to go with if working with somebody to help you achieve your brand partnerships. I worked with agents a lot with a lot of the deals that I did, and I found with new developing artists, it opened up a lot of doors for me and got me in front of people that I wouldn't have been able to get in front of myself. Gordy is also working currently with Zara, which is, I don't know if you guys know it, Zara is one of the top 10 brands in the world, up there with like Apple and Microsoft and Amazon. I was shocked when I saw that as well. But he's doing all of the activation for celebrity and artist endorsements with that brand, as well as working with Paco Rabanne on the Millionaire campaign that's using Joey Badass, and he did the Mercedes with Solange, A$AP Rocky, MIA. So yeah, so do you want to?
It's very varied. I mean, it's been quite a journey. I'm sure Mervyn and Sean will back us up from the sort of nascent days of partnerships, which was when record labels really needed the money to pay for stuff. When sort of, the streaming platforms first came in and were really decimating the record companies' bottom lines, and they needed partners to help them do things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford to do. Particularly when you had sometimes sort of, artists that may have come from a different period where budgets were not an issue, where you could spend millions of pounds on videos, you could take 50 people on the road to promote your album. Once that started being untenable from a commercial point of view, it became important for the labels to then find partners who would be able to support activity. Now, there's lots of arguments about whether that's what labels should be doing, and it also kind of happened to sort of evolve around a time. I think Mervyn would agree, when a lot of 360 deals were being done, and labels were participating in all areas of an artist's business. That feels like it's changed quite a lot, but at the same time, there's kind of various ways in which you can approach partnerships. I think you can look at it, if you're an emerging artist, as a way to sort of reach a bigger audience, to align yourself with a brand that stands for, that has the same values perhaps that you may have as an artist, or is promoting the same kind of interests that you may have as an artist. Or you can look at it as perhaps a more mature artist who's then looking to sort of monetize their reach and influence in a commercial way. I think ultimately, as Neve sort of pointed out, the main point of partnerships is to allow sort of artistic expression that may not be possible unless it was funded by a commercial entity. That's kind of, I think, at the core of what most partnerships are around. And I think brands understand that relationship. They know that they're getting access to culture that they wouldn't otherwise, and they know they're getting access to audiences that they perhaps wouldn't otherwise, because the whole idea of a brand being on social media as its own platform is, people don't really care about brands in that way, unless it's fashion brands and a few others. But through the association either with talent or influence, they can get interest that they wouldn't normally have. I mean, ideally, there should be no compromise in that relationship, and there should be a really natural fit between the brand and the talent. But as we've seen the sort of commercial area, the endorsement area sort of grow and become really quite a significant part of the way artists earn money, it is seen by a lot of people as a quick cash pickup. And I would often find that brand new artists who hadn't actually even released anything, maybe a single or two, and who would be introduced to me when I was at WME as a head of commercials in the UK and for EMEA, their first question, the manager, or the artist actually even more so than the manager, would say is, where can we get some free money?
Who can pay for
And
this?
yeah, who can pay for it, I think, is a better
Yeah,
question.
who can pay for this?
That's a better question, because at least you're offering something. But the idea that brand partnerships is this endless source of free money is something that I think is believed by a lot of people. But you really have to realise what you have to trade as a manager. You are trading access to audience, and you're trading cultural relevance. So if you don't have that access to audience, and you don't have that cultural relevance within a certain group or whatever area your band is integrating with, then you really don't have much to offer. And you're going to have to wait to a point when you've actually got that before you can really go out and really leverage that opportunity in a significant way. I think coming out of it the other side now, having been at WME for a long time, what's become really interesting is the nature between brands and talent has changed. Brands quite often want to have a direct relationship with talent. They don't really like it to be policed by agents or by record labels. And these days, it's very easy for a brand to reach out directly to a talent because all they have to do is DM them, and send them some stuff. Everyone likes getting free stuff. So often you see that brands will kind of make sort of inroads into building relationships with talent directly. Now, that can be fine, but you've also got to think about whether that strategically is going to work for what you're trying to achieve with the act that you're representing, and whether that brand partnership is going to be to their benefit or to their detriment. So as Neem pointed out, and I think as all of us on this panel would agree, the most important thing and the best brand relationships are one where the talent actually likes or uses the brand. That it's not some forced kind of setup where, and we've all seen them, people doing a campaign for Samsung and posting pictures with a Sony phone or with an Apple phone. We've all heard the stories about what happened with BlackBerry and some of those kind of campaigns. So authenticity is what's going to cause you less damage with your brand and give you a better output from the partnership as well. And I found that since I've been in more of an independent space rather than working for an agency, that you're seeing brands trying to build and develop ongoing relationships with talent that they feel fit their demographic or their aspirations from a promotional point of view, and being a lot more open to that relationship being actually a true collaboration and partnership. I think we've also seen, though there's always kind of huge interest in the massive global stars for partnerships, and we all know that those artists are always going to be front of mind for big collaborations and partnerships. I think now there's been much more interest for brands, particularly brands which have a presence or an edge, or feel that they have authenticity in the same way that an artist does, to start with someone when they're quite small and credible and build that relationship and stay in a relationship with them as they grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So it becomes even more important that you identify the right partners very early on and don't make those compromises, because you only get most probably 1 or 2 shots per category with an artist. The moment someone starts looking like they're actually more of a brand marketeer than an artist is when you're really negatively impacting on that person's career in the music industry. So that's something I would just advise you all to be really careful about and think about the nature of the collaborations you're considering. Make sure they work for the talent. Make sure that there's a natural fit that is authentic and isn't going to compromise the artist. And ideally, if you are able to do all of that, then you might be able to get to the point where the contract just goes into a drawer because everyone's on the same page. The point when you start saying, well, I'm not doing that because it says in this line of the contract we're not doing that, the partnership's already broken at that point.
Okay.
I concur.
It's already broken. You should only really be in partnerships with brands that the talent like and with artists that the brand love, respect, and are going to be respectful towards. I don't know if that's
This is
Start.
Makes total
this
sense.
is total sense. And I wanted to touch on something as well. You are actually doing deals where artists are having equity shares
Yeah.
with brands, and that's something that is happening a lot lately.
Sure.
And I was wondering if you could talk us through
Sure.
the basics of that.
Did you do the syrup deal with Puffy? I didn't. I thought you did.
With what? Oh, the Ciroc deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone
Yeah.
knows. I mean, that was, I mentioned that as that was kind of the first deal that now.
Did you hear what he said? He was talking about the
When
Ciroc
Puffy
deal
was promoting
with-
Ciroc vodka, I don't know,
Puffy.
you might remember, Diddy,
Back in the 90s,
whatever
Diddy.
you want to call him. So that was kind of the deal that a lot of people wanted to emulate, and everyone's been trying to emulate since, where he participated in the business, the amount of money he earned out of that deal was directly linked to the amount of product that got sold on a global basis. And it became a bit of a template that people really wanted to try and follow. I don't think anyone's actually really ever been able to successfully sort of replicate it since then.
50 Cent?
With smart water, with his
Yeah.
vitamin water.
I guess so, but
Yeah.
I guess so.
think part of the problem is that they always want a huge advance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's not a partnership if there's.
Yeah. I mean, there's
It's
ways
not
to,
joint venture.
yeah.
And he didn't take an advance.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
obviously going to make it, because the bottom line is if you're invested in the business as an artist, you're going to work damn sight harder for it than if you're just picking up a fee for 6 months or 12 months, because you know, and I think that's the ultimate aim that a lot of artists want these days, particularly established artists, is they want to be able to generate businesses or create businesses or partner in businesses that are going to deliver revenue on an ongoing basis, irregardless of where they are in their career. So things that aren't necessarily tied to their sort of chart success or streaming success or, profile within the industry, but where there's a natural fit where they can bring something to the brand and the partnership that means that they're a meaningful partner in the business. So some of the deals that I've done in that kind of space, I would say, I think mostly one of the sort of, one that I think everyone will be aware of, I think it's a good place to start, is Lewis Hamilton for Tommy Hilfiger. So that initially started with sort of a conversation with Lewis about doing something with the aftershave, and then we realised that Lewis was someone that was incredibly interested in fashion. He wanted to sort of, promote himself and put himself out there as someone that was, a figure in fashion. That was important to him. He had his own aspirations to create his own fashion lines, leisurewear lines, etc., under his own brand, and he wanted that credibility. So a relationship with a fashion brand became, an attractive thing. Obviously, Lewis has huge reach and influence, but also at the same time, he had aspirations to actually design and to do some stuff in that space. So by doing a deal with Tommy Hilfiger, he was, of course, able to get a massive deal for himself. He was also able to get team sponsorship with Tommy Hilfiger for his racing career. And he was also able to be part of the design process and do various collections over the period of time, the length of the partnership. And not only did he get the sort of big advance, which wasn't an advance against sales, it was a straight fee for him being the face of Tommy Hilfiger, but he also participated on a sort of percentage basis, almost a bit like a licensing deal on any product which he designed, which was then sold over the time it was sold. So it was a direct participation deal. That's kind of one example that I think that was pretty successful for him. Then another one I did for an actor who's an actor who played Superman called Henry Cavill. So he is someone that's into health and fitness. He became a participatory partner in a company called Rosemary Water. You guys might have remembered it came out a few years ago, and it was rosemary, the herb flavoured water that had been developed on this island where it had the highest degree of octogenarians of anywhere in the world, because they all chewed rosemary apparently. So he was into it, it was a natural fit, he was into health and fitness. So he actually, sort of the deal was a significant advance, but that advance was against earnings from sales. So there are sometimes ways you can kind of cut it up if you've got that kind of power to get an advance and also participate in the business. But I think that's something that's very specific for people at a certain kind of level. But having said that, the fact now that the underground is the overground, and emerging brands, small brands, are the brands that very quickly become the most comfortable brands in the world, it means that an artist who may have an association with an emerging brand, which is growing and growing and growing, can be part of that business, and actually sort of, as they grow and as the business grows, you can grow, and your share in a possible partnership can grow as well. I remember, not too long ago, if you were talking to sort of the big marquee blue chip bands like the Louis Vuittons or the Dolce & Gabbanas or the Pradas or Bottega or any of those brands, the people they were most interested in were the huge global actors, musicians, really incredibly famous people. I was lucky when I worked at WME, we had a whole roster of very, very big talent. But interestingly now, I find that even the most sort of, covetable brands, their focus is not with those people anymore. it's with emerging artists coming up from the street, for want of a better thing,
Yeah.
or it's with left field artists that have just got their own position and they're doing something really interesting and creative because they want some of that halo effect from that association. And it's not so much about the huge, big global names. When I first started working in partnerships, it was for people like Usher or Mariah Carey or those kind of level people. But now increasingly it's, I mean, look, I don't think I'm going to say anything which is untrue. Last week I was speaking to Louis Vuitton about doing a deal with Central C, which 5 years ago, 3 years ago would never have happened. But now the audience who are shopping in those stores has changed. The demographic they're trying to reach has changed. So there is a lot more opportunity in those spaces with brands that you may not have thought would be interested in acts that are on the cusp or perhaps a little bit more underground than the mainstream brands that you normally see in advertising. But it's always a mix, you know. For every Central C getting a deal, Dua Lipa's going to get 5. So you just have to kind of work out where you fit, what you want to achieve, and who's going to be the most authentic fit for you.
So do you feel, you're saying for every one of those deals, how do young or new or mid-range managers get that one deal? What do they,
I think
what do we need?
I think it's through the artists they have and their loves and their passions. I think if you can demonstrate an authentic connection with a brand, an emerging brand, or even a more established brand, there will always be interest. Because people can see people who are on the move, people who are changing culture, people who are engaging with audiences. And you know, if you are some of those brands, you may not get those results from people who are more established because they're frankly not as cool.
And that's a common theme that both you and Neve are talking about here. You're both using the word authenticity.
Oh, 100%. It's the most important thing.
Maintaining
Yeah.
that's attractive to brands and having successful brand collaborations.
And even as an agent, if you ask an artist to compromise to do a deal to make money, that is not a good position that you should ever be in as an agent. That's not you representing the brand or representing the talent to the best of your ability, because essentially you're saying, hey, just take the money and it doesn't really matter what it does to your career or affects you, because hey, look, there's some money there, take it. That's a very short-term point of view or short-term way of looking at things.
Yeah, I mean, I did a deal with Gucci Group that lasted for 7 years. It was
Yeah.
renewed for 7 years, and if the artist wasn't authentic, or if anything looked not real, it would have ended within 1 year. So sometimes you just have to look at the long tailwind of
And then
a
what
deal.
I'm going to say is that those deals can actually really completely change a career.
Mhm.
Not necessarily because they're the most important thing, but artists need to live, they need to eat, they need to create, and that takes money. And when you don't have money, you will often find yourself considering doing things that you might not want to do because you're going to earn out of them. So if you can find the right partnership, it can really sustain you. I'll just give one quick example of a deal that I did that I thought really did that. So I've represented Lupita for a long time, the actress Lupita Nyong'o. I met her when I worked at MTV Base Africa, and she took part in a series we did, an HIV education series, about 2006-2007, which was called Honey. It was like in East Africa, and it was about promoting sexual health, which was a big thing that MTV spent a lot of money behind and pushed behind. So I met her then, and obviously I saw her develop. She got the part in 12 Years a Slave. She came out of winning the Oscar with no movie and no job, but she had an Oscar. Now, even when she had the Oscar, she was still finding it difficult to get the right jobs, get the right scripts, attach herself to films that she wanted to. But we were able to, immediately after she won the Oscar, do a multi-year deal with her for Longcon to be the face of Longcon, which essentially meant that she didn't have to take a shit film to earn money, and she could actually wait, and then she waited and then did Star Wars. But had she not had that Longcon deal in place, which started in 2016 and is still live now, and with most of their ambassadors, they're lifetime ambassadors. So it's a guaranteed income for her, year after year after year after year, which means she doesn't have to compromise on her art. And I think if you can not look at partnerships like that, but if you can build the right partnerships, they can have that kind of longevity, I think.
Good, that's really great information. I wanted to shift lanes and talk about a different kind of partnership. We're going to cover a lot here. NFTs. And NFTs, not everybody understands NFTs, but everybody sees the headlines. we saw the headline last week where Snoop Dogg did,
Yeah.
what, 45 million in 5 days? And you told, there was another one that you just...
Yeah, so Steve Aoki basically
Yeah.
come out and just said he's made more money from NFTs than his whole career. So we've been fortunate, we've been able to be able to work with him and see how he's built it and do stuff. So yeah.
And it's interesting because the reason why I wanted to talk about them is I think it's really important for managers to understand, you know, the value of NFTs, what they are, because I do think that they're, you know, as they get more valuable, record labels are going to try to have this put into the contracts of another thing that they are going to want participation in with deals or partnerships moving forward. So I wanted, not everybody truly understands what they are. I always think of them as like very expensive digital merchandise that's created by the artist, but then there's other ways to think about it. But can you just explain in the basic terms about NFTs and how artists can actually start and build a business with NFTs from grassroots?
Yeah, so NFTs, you know, non-fungible tokens, which a lot of us are hearing and is on the lips of everybody at this present moment. So you've got both brands and artists going, what does it stand for? What does it mean? How does it fit within our business plan? How does it fit within our marketing plan? And more importantly, how can we get some of the gold rush that we're hearing everyone making millions and millions and millions? So the one thing that's relevant for everyone here is it needs to be organic and it needs to be relevant to the audience. So NFT is basically a digital art or it's digital content that you can wrap in a art form that you can communicate through the marketing channel. So I see it as a part of how you look at your talent, how you build a business plan, and how you build their marketing communications. So we've been fortunate to work with a talent recently who on the 27th of August decided during lockdown can't make money the traditional way from doing touring and communication. He was able to mint 10,000 NFTs, it's called Pillman, and made, as a consequence, 11 million in 12 minutes.
So can you say that again? 11 million? We have 11 management, 11 million.
11 million in 12 minutes.
11 million.
However, what I would say is, the Pillman was associated with the anger management tour for MMF, so he was able to use a collateral and material that had relevance, and that's why I was coming to it. It had a story, it had a background, and it had an audience. So the same way you've taken the time with the talent you have to build an audience, to understand the audience, and know what's relevant to that audience, which Audie was just saying, in sense of, there's no point trying to go with Adidas when your client, your artist has been wearing in every video, every communication Nike. All of a sudden they're gonna go, why? So when you're doing these communications in the sense of NFTs, is what is relevant, what's passionate about the artist and their audience? Is it the artist is known for the way that they communicate, the way they dress, the way they look? Is it something that can be formulated in an art format in this digital creation that they can mint? So Steve Aoki is known for his digital world. He's always talking about samurais, and he's always talking about his clothing line, which is very cartoonish in a sense of look and feel. So if you look at what he did last year, once again, his audience was able to resonate with the look and feel of his creative, but what he did was very smart, which a lot of people are not doing, is bolster it with rights and services. So same way you work with a brand, what are you giving them that's tangible? So he was able to say, if you purchase this NFT, guess what, everyone can jump on the IG live with me and have a communication. So everyone felt they were getting something from the communication and the trade of the NFT. And that's really important. One of the things is, it's a win-win situation, because at the moment, audiences are finding it that everyone's dropping an NFT. Where do I go? Why do I do it? I don't know what it means. I've got this beautiful piece of artwork, sits on my phone. My friends think it's cool for 15 seconds, and I've paid a lot of money. I've paid a lot of ETH for it. So, really and truly, it's about, once again, coming back to identifying the creative, the rights and services that that audience will connect with, that you can give something for everyone, as I said, to that IG communication, and then thinking about it in a loyalty program. As you went up the tiering, the more expensive it gets, the more relevant it gets to that particular artist. So for instance, if you're going to sell it for 1,000, is it a meet and greet? Is it something that's tangible that can be used and sold on the smart contract? That's the great thing about NFTs. You can track for the first time transparently the sale and the purchase of that digital artwork from end to end. So you don't have to come back to us and say, and the rights and services, how many sales of that shirt did we
Do whatever you
sell?
want, right?
You can see it in front of you in a sense of the platform that you use. So you guys are all younger than all of us, except for yourself, obviously I'm here.
You'd be surprised.
So you understand the different platforms from OpenSea, Nifty, all the things that you guys are hearing, and you're probably going, why are these guys making a lot more money than when I do my NFT? And the secret is they're understanding the audience, connecting the rights and services that's relevant for it, and then using a very smart commercial loyalty program that is driving this fear of missing out and this opportunity to get access to stuff that we'll normally get access to. So in simple terms, NFTs are here. Are they going to go away? No, you're going to have a lot of them not going to fail, but you're also going to have a lot of them that are very successful. I see them being a key component of your marketing plan, and I see it as a key component of how you're going to be able to build additional revenue for your artists ongoing.
I think it's also worth noting that that you guys are in the driving seat, because at the moment the NFT world is not controlled by the labels.
Yes.
It's in your hands. So what you make of it is, like Gordy was saying, this is, before there were 360 deals and it was all encompassing. NFTs are not in that. So you guys are in the driving seat. So it's something that you can hold and control and build yourselves. And that's why the labels are so keen on creating this head of metaverse or whatever they want to call, because they've seen the opportunities that lie before them, which is far more money than they can possibly make from selling music.
I kind of feel there's also been a bit of a reaction to sort of just the dominance of the streamers for a lot of artists, where they're seeing that their revenues have really come down, because streaming revenues, though we all appreciate them, and I'm sure artists appreciate them, they're not really comparable to record sales.
And it's polarised by the lack of touring, isn't
Yeah.
it? So it's really kind of made it
It's
much
made it
more
much
apparent,
more difficult,
right?
but NFT is obviously an area where you can wholly own and wholly control yourself. You can even control how your music gets out to market. You can be completely outside of the label system, not advocating it, but it's an opportunity. I mean, if you look at what Kanye is doing with his player, at the moment, I think he's only got 65,000 of those players manufactured. So he doesn't give a fuck about chart entry. He doesn't give a damn about day one sales, which on his last album he broke records with day one streams. But he's looking at the amount of money he can generate from selling those 65,000 to super fans at $200 a pop, and what that will generate for him in terms of income, compared to what it would take for him to get that same level of income from a streaming position in terms of his music.
Totally.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways to cut the cloth these days, and you don't normally have to go through the traditional routes you did. I think Snoop's always been someone that's been ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Lucky enough to be able to work with him at WME as an agent until he left just about a year and a half ago. But I still work with him. We just did the Just Eat campaign, which was a huge deal for him. It's just been renewed for another year, and it's looking really successful. And that was his music being involved in it as well, and it was a really nice deal for him. And there are different ways to sort of shift the model in terms of how you can generate income as an artist.
All I'll add is, as well, the 360 deal, what you might get locked into, NFTs play across that whole ecosystem. So a lot of the guys who are being successful, not just looking at digital art, they're looking at it as, how does it influence my merchandise? How does it influence my music? How does it influence the brand deals? Because brands want to get involved with the NFT. So if you're locked into a deal with the music label, that might actually affect the type of deal that you get with a brand, because this is on the lips of them as well. And also too, which Paul will come on to, there's a lot of investors who want to get involved with NFTs. I've never seen this level of money coming in from non-traditional investors for this type of art, and they want the rights and services. So you've got private wealth houses getting involved. You've got Golden Sachs, and all these type of guys that would normally wouldn't get involved in these type of brand deals, but they've got slushes of money through the investors that go in. Actually, I can get a 15-20% return in the market, where if I put it in the bank, I'm lucky if I get 1%. I'm lucky actually if I put it in a normal hedge fund, I get 8%. But you guys have got an audience that are willing to spend money that can give 15%. So once again, as Maureen just said, it's thinking through the whole end to end of where your artist is, and how NFT can actually provide a 360 commercial entity to your business, which allows you to get back to the creativity and the passion and the love that which is all started out in the first place.
I don't know if you guys have had the same experience, but over the last few weeks, I've had approaches from 2 or 3 different platforms who are trying to essentially sort of socially activated NFT-based platforms by getting talent to essentially sign up to that platform and make exclusive material available on that platform for super fans.
Yeah, I mean, we've been approached every week,
I know,
probably by
literally.
2 or 3 a week.
And they're all well
yeah.
funded. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, the last guys that reached out to me on that were the same team that launched
Yeah.
and ran OnlyFans,
Yeah.
who were doing something in this space,
Yeah.
and that's what their next vision is, like, hey, this is where we're going after OnlyFans. So
But to their point though as well, and to yours,
Yeah.
I think it's again something that you kind of, if you have an artist, certainly an artist with kind of longevity, it's not something to rush into.
No.
You've got to make sure that you're doing something that's kind of got a utility, that's got
Yeah.
a purpose, that's like super important, and it's long term, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to be doing something slapdash just to money grab, because I
Yeah.
think actually kind of quite a lot of those kind of things that have happened
Haven't worked.
haven't worked, and it's
Yeah.
also been very frustrating. I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
blockchain being disruptive and all the things
Yeah.
that it's possible, but unfortunately because of those
But
things
the
it's kind
labels
of
are
not.
thinking
Yeah,
that there's a gold rush,
yeah,
and
yeah.
artists and managers want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So here's a
Yeah.
deal that will
Yeah.
get you into
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
gold rush, and actually you've got to kind of
Yeah.
take yourself away from
Yeah,
that.
You've got to
it's
do the
really,
right deal.
and it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
just, and I think also as well people just kind of see it for just the actual kind of NFT itself, rather than,
Yeah.
as you say,
Yeah.
the whole
Okay.
ecosystem around
Yeah.
it, which obviously needs to be thought through.
I mean, some talent that don't even have music I've seen do NFTs are making good money, but that's because it comes back to the authentic relationship that we had with their audience. They're already in the position of showing art or animated requirements of the self that correlates back to the audience. So if you don't have a backstory or an identity of what you're doing, and you just try to do an NFT drop,
Not gonna
most
work.
of the time it's not going to be
Yeah.
successful.
There's a
I can be
great
really
example
honest.
of that, which is I remember after the first NFT got sold, which is that picture that got sold for
Yes.
millions and millions of pounds. I
People.
don't represent her, just being honest. but Kate Moss did an NFT of series of images of her sleeping, right? Which she thought, okay, NFT digital image of me sleeping. Lots of people know who I am. Lots of people follow me. I'm very famous. Sold 30,000 quid. It didn't sell for anything at all. There was zero interest in it. So it's not kind of exactly how you would always imagine it to be if you've got a huge following and huge engagement, that you're definitely going to be able to operate in that space. It's about, as Sean and Mel pointed out and you pointed out, it's about having something tangible which you're offering via that mechanism, which people can't get anywhere else, and there's a reward kind of for super fandom, I kind of think. to
But
some
you know what,
extent.
I think it's a really, I don't know if anybody here, like whether you all have a digital wallet, but you should, and you should just go and explore. And
Yeah.
one of the things I have seen recently, which is not applicable for me, but it's probably applicable for artists on the rise, is a platform that was kind of offering listening parties, which essentially for me was a way to kind of fund the A&R process of making a record, and I thought that was really like quite
That's
ingenious
interesting, right?
actually. So you should check out those kinds of things. But then maybe you're not ready to kind of be able to create an ecosystem or have a community that you can kind of tap into for long term yet. But there are kind of these other potential ideas that are really interesting to look at.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of the themes that have come out is, authenticity and, waiting for the right opportunity, not just jumping on it. And you talked a little bit about lots of things. And for this, before we get to the investment part, I think it would be easier if anybody has any questions on this part of our panel, which has to do with brand partnerships, NFTs, and these kind of conversations that have been had right now. It would be great if we can get some questions in now before we switch to the investor presentation. So does anybody have any questions?
Hi. So one question that I would have as a manager of a upcoming artist would be like, when you really like a brand but you have a small following, you have a huge following, like should you reach out to the brand yourself or just, I don't know, wait for brands to contact you directly? Thank you.
I think the easy answer is you've got to do whatever you can, whenever you can, to whoever you can, if you're representing an artist. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when we set up the business, the first thing that we said is that we work with brands down to find artists as opposed to take artists to find brands, because there's tons of people out there who will take your money and say they'll get you a brand deal, and 12 months down the line you've parted with money and you've got nothing.
Yeah.
So I think there's a reason for you to kind of do everything yourself as much as you can. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They say no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you're in no, you know.
because before I joined SBS with Urban, I was global head of marketing and partnerships for MasterCard. And we used to obviously use the Priceless platform. So when Mervyn left Sony, we set up Priceless Gigs, which was coming back to you, said we wanted to connect directly with the talent because we felt that was the only way that we could get the brand to have relevance and, more importantly, feel organic with talent. But the talent will come into MasterCard and say, we want to work with you. And then we were able to identify, be it if you were, as I say, AAA artist from Beyonce down to a emerging artist, allow the brand to have a better insight and, more importantly, have breadth across their portfolio. So our advice would be you should go direct to clients, but also to work with the right people in the industry that can connect probably with the brands that you're looking for to keep that authenticity going.
And I think from a management perspective, I think you need to ask why. You know, like what is the reason why it makes sense to go to that brand for that artist? You know, and because they're going to ask you why you think. So you have to really think hard about kind of what aligns with the artist and what reasons you have to be involved. Do you
And
agree?
I definitely agree, and I think also maybe if you really are a huge fan of the band, or I said we're a huge fan of the band, give them some love before you even ask for any money. You know, wear their stuff in your Instagram, credit it, talk about how much you love the new thing. You know, obviously don't go too far because then they don't need to pay you. But
That's a really good point.
So, obviously don't go too far because then they won't need to pay you. But show them you love them, because the one thing that every brand is looking for is an authentic relationship with the talent. So if they can say, hey, look, this person's wearing our stuff and they're telling you how much they love it, they're going to start sending you stuff. And as you grow and as their influence through you growing grows, then that conversation can then be moved into a more commercial conversation. You know,
So do brands really check out their Instagram when you tag them? Yeah.
100%.
That's good.
100%.
100%. You know, everyone loves things for free, right? So brands say, hey, we've got some promotion with this really cool artist, and we don't have to pay for it.
Yeah. Trust me, in the corporate world, they're celebrating. Look, an artist is wearing.
Yeah. And we didn't have to pay.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a big deal, to be honest.
That's actually really important information because not everybody knows that, you know, the streets are watching, as we used to say in New York. The brands are watching too.
Absolutely. They're looking for, they've got Google alerts on anything. They're looking through, they're looking for their hashtag.
Yeah. They've got
You know.
PR teams that just sit
They've got, yeah, exactly.
and watch it.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Oh, there's somebody behind you. Do you mind passing?
There's a question around the NFTs. At the moment, there's a bit of like backlash with some artists in terms of the sustainability buying NFTs, and then secondly also just it being accessible enough to like buy one, like without having to. I think there's maybe one platform that lets you go direct at the moment from your like normal bank or something. Just love to like hear your insights on where you think it's going to go in the short term in terms of. Do you think we should watch out and be careful because of that backlash?
I'd like to talk from an artist's point of view, because that's a really important question, and one of the reasons why we haven't engaged actually yet, and not because I'm not a fan, I'm absolutely obviously a huge fan, don't get me wrong, and I think that the platforms will change, but there's an education to be done. I think that the NFT is not the problem, but the oil, the ETH, the ETH is the issue, because it's basically sitting on a not a very kind of efficient kind of chain. But there are alternatives. You know, there are kind of what's called referred to as kind of, is it T2s? But anyway, chains that sit on top of kind of Ethereum, which are much more kind of environmentally friendly. By having power of stake as opposed to kind of power of with the other basically it's more efficient that way. I mean, I'm give the jargon, and I think that kind of there are other chains like Solana, like Cardano, Phantom, you know, which are all alternatives. And so, yeah, I think it's really important. But I also think it's really important for the people that are actually doing all this to show people that it isn't all kind of bad and that as actually good, because we need good things to kind of happen, because it is a really positive thing for the industry. You know, I think it's like 12% of 450 billion pounds worth of the industry goes to artists. That's like 50 to 60% of it is intermediaries. I mean, there's a huge rebalance that needs to be addressed. You know, even if we were able to improve it slightly, which is why people are obviously interested in IP and music rights, because, you know, even if, you know, at the moment it's obviously attractive, but if we were able to kind of get even more, it's even more attractive. So we do need amazing executions, things that kind of are not just slapdash, really good execution, because we want it to survive, we want it to be really good, and we want it to be, you know, a way to be able to kind of disrupt the future. I do anyway.
I mean, NFTs are positive. It's given a new source, there's new excitement, and also to a freedom, as Mervyn just said, to yourselves and to the talent. Every brand deal has a pro and con to it. So if you went with Nike, someone's going to say, well, they produce their goods in China. I'm not saying that ETH is the most energy efficient, but you know, we've probably got here in taxis and trains and stuff that all still uses fossil fuels, etc. And the moral of that story is they are going to get better over time. So anyone who was into crypto or NFTs 4 or 5 years ago, you would have to spend half the day at home trying to work out and figure out this platform to that platform to this platform. Now you can buy crypto and on Revolut in the normal banking process, or you can buy it on Binance and all different names. You know, it's a lot easier, and the process will improve. However, which you made a good point, is you need to understand where your artist is in that value chain. That if a communication came out on, well, you always talk about saving the world, and you're really about this, and you're now doing an NFT on ETH. Well, that doesn't correlate to what you've been saying and what you've been doing. So the backlash will be.
And cancel culture is a real thing.
Correct.
So just tread really carefully. But it is something that is definitely positive. And we just, as I said, I'm not sure I would want my artists to be educating people about it. I think it's the job of everybody else and the community. And actually, there should be some really good PR on it as well. It's all negative.
I think as we move to Web3 as well, and as that becomes more important and everyone's talking about the metaverse, then if you're not sort of aware of the opportunity within that space and how it may be a benefit to your artist and whether it's right for your artist, then you're really missing out a huge opportunity in terms of just being in a space which is going to be increasingly important for awareness, influence, and, you know, just people to consume people's creative content. So yeah, you have to be in that space at some point.
Yeah, and it's moving towards. I mean, Snoop Dogg was talking about Death Row is only going to be an NFT business.
Yeah.
So he's only releasing artists through NFTs, the merchandise, the music, his publisher rights. The whole thing is built on an NFT infrastructure.
Is it the first NFT only record label, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you won't hold that for long, because someone else is going to say, well, I want to do that, I want to do that. I mean, we always talk, we're getting calls left, right and centre, even from labels and brands, etc., saying, how do we get into this space? So all I would say is, like you said best, you've got to get educated, but you know your artist better than anybody else, and your artist knows their audience. Like he always just teach me when I was at MasterCard, going, oh, I know what the artist should be doing. He would say, no, the artist knows the audience way better than you would ever know as a brand.
Yeah.
And therefore, because you know your audience, you know what is relevant for them, the timing for them, and how you should do it. And I just think you should keep that sixth sense, no matter what the communication or execution should be.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, maybe one.
Oh, can you
Just,
oh.
yeah, sorry, hi. The Snoop Death Row thing, really interesting. So, you guys, brand managers, top down, I get that, been there, done that. So I'm trying to flip it the other way, right? I generally sign a bit of rights as well as the management, right? So publishing or masters, management, etc. So I'm thinking about this space, if you like, as a digital asset, which all our artists are digital assets. You know, okay, they do a live gig, but all the income streams, whether it be neighbouring rights, Spotify, it's all digital. So the majors tried the 360 model. Never done one myself, never will. Pay 'em. Why can't the artist and maybe their team create an asset that encumbers the 7 main income streams of an act, you know, in earlier days, and call that an NFT? What's the difference?
I actually think you can.
There's no difference.
There's no difference at all.
You can
Yeah.
bundle whatever you want into it, right?
Yeah, well, it's just a digital
Exactly.
format. Correct. Sorry.
Okay. I just wanted to reaffirm that.
Now, Paul, the only problem is that as a manager, you're less likely to want to go and invest in building this empire that's going to deliver this. Most managers are completely focused on, getting live, getting record deal or getting a band live, And I used to say when I was, at Sony and working with some of the managers, especially someone like Richard Griffiths, that modest. Richard will say, why am I paying you a tax, Mervyn, for doing brand deals? I said, because Richard, you haven't got anybody at your company that are doing it. And if you've got that, if you were able to, to have a big enough enterprise, you can do that. You absolutely should. Unfortunately, though, not everybody has that bandwidth that they can, allocate 4 or 5 people to go and create all those assets and, monetize it and put it in this ecosystem that you're going to go and get. That's the problem.
And to be honest with you, that's what people are coming to us at the moment. Because the problem is everyone is very blinkered on, it's a piece of creative.
It's a digital.
It's an ecosystem. It's the same ecosystem you were doing before, but how you slice and dice it and bring it together as a bundle on the new execution in those platforms. That is what it is.
Oh.
So obviously, like everyone within music is hearing about NFTs and stuff like that. But I'd say that a lot of our like friends and family and things like that, it will still be a completely kind of like alien term. I don't personally know anyone who's like bought an NFT, for example. So I was wondering if you guys know like who is.
Can I be really outspoken? I actually wish they'd stop saying NFTs because it's like when people start saying MP3s.
Yeah.
I don't think people kind of like
They switch off.
They
They died.
switch off their
They switch off, they don't wanna
acronyms.
hear it.
I think when it becomes something that you don't even realize it's an NFT is when it's mainstream.
Yeah.
And so if you go look at Audius right now and download the app from the App Store, it's a blockchain. It's a Web3 kind of streaming service. You don't even know you're on blockchain, and those are the things that actually are going to kind of innovate and kind of push things kind of forward. So I actually wish we'd stop using NFT actually as a kind of abbreviation because it's about the experience. It's about product. It's about what it is. And that's what we should be talking about, not actually NFTs, because I just think it's too generic.
It's always digital. It's just a digital
It's
format.
it's just a
And
digital
that's
name to
correct.
bamboozle people. It's quite straightforward.
It's an experience.
But-
It's a
but-
creative experience.
But to answer your question, my son is 13 and his friends are buying them left, right, centre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that was kind of the point I was making. Is
Yeah.
this like a Gen Z thing that's gonna eventually, like TikTok, how that spread into, okay, it was just Gen Z and now it's kind of something that everyone should be exploiting.
Do anyone here
Is it
play
similar?
Minecraft or Roblox or right? So people, the reason why it's one of the most popular games in the world. They've been doing tokenization for years, right? Where you buy, you've got avatars, you put clothes and stuff on it.
Skins and all that kind of
All the
stuff.
skins, that was tokenization, right? And that was monetized, and we all thought school. FIFA's been, so it's always been here. It's just been, as you said, coined in a new phrase, and there's new platforms and executions.
But it's not going to help, is it, unless we simplify
Correct, the
and basically
process.
kind of and have things that kind of
Yeah.
are as well executed as a brand.
Yeah.
But I kind of think
Activation,
artists, a lot of artists are kind of ahead of the game on this as well. I pulled a list together just for a client last week of clients who were interested in Web3 partnerships and NFTs. It was a massive list across all areas, across all genres. There was a list of people who've invested in tech.
Yeah.
It was a massive list. There was a people who are collecting NFTs. It was a massive list. I'm looking at it now. It's like hundreds of names of talent who are already in this space. So I think the talent are kind of aware of it. I think that younger generation are aware of it, and it's about the rest of the market kind of catching up. To be honest with you,
But also too, we've had more to say. We've got a new audience that have not engaged in this before.
Yeah.
I have not seen levels of banking. I mean, I worked in banking for 10 years. Goldman Sachs, Merrill's. The guys have seen this as huge investment opportunities. Private wealth offices going. I would engage with talent to do investments because we know we can get a better return. So it's brought a new audience as well that's looking at this from an investment standpoint. But once again, as we all said, is be careful who you take the money from, because you need to understand what they want in return for it. But it's huge opportunity, huge opportunity.
Okay, another question over there. Where's the microphone?
I was here.
Hey.
By the way, I actually have NFTs.
Oh, hey! Me too.
Yeah, so my question is, in terms of like your drops with your artists, there's always a clash between fans buying it or NFT traders or people within that community buying it. Now, there's always a lot of hype in that space. I want to know what is the percentage of people buying your artist NFTs as fans or as traders?
And become traders though.
Yeah, so it's a very good question. So I would say 18 months ago you were getting the true fans that were buying NFTs, right? We went into lockdown and a lot of young people made a lot of money on crypto. And the collectibles, be it NFTs, Nikes, I mean, Air Jordan's dropped so many different different collections because people had income that were buying for this collectible market. To answer your question, you're getting probably 10%. I know of investors that are looking at this and going, I'm going to buy this and sit on this because I know I'm going to get this spike from the community, this fear of missing out. And then when you get to the second drop, it really does start to dilute the true audience of people who have got into it. It's then mainly collectors getting involved, crypto, I call them cryptomaniacs. I hope that's not required. I buy crypto, but people are going, how am I going to use this to boost my crypto or to transfer my crypto into something more tangible? And then you get, once again, people are just going, I've heard about this, so I'm going to go and purchase this. So I will say, majority of the first drop is the true audience. Second and third, you start to bring in new audiences that dilutes the audiences altogether.
Okay, so I hope that everybody got the questions they want. We might have time afterwards, but we're going